you've done maybe puts your car in a more realistic place. You know, it's a material possession. If it can be used to help someone else, that's great. I mean, again, it depends on the circumstances. I like to think that any of us, you and I, or anybody else, if we were in a situation where to lend somebody our car would solve some emergency, we'd do it without thinking in a heartbeat, wouldn't we?
Mm.
So that there's always circumstances which might come into play. But yeah, I like the fact that material possession, great though these things are, and improve the quality of life to have a car and so on for many of us, then treat it as it should be. It's a vehicle, it's to be utilized for us, but if necessary for somebody else. So, yeah, I think that's very good. Very good point. And just before we get on to our quiz, one more. Um, Again, these are Chinese proverbs. A tongue, we talked about the tongue before, haven't we? Is the only instrument that grows sharper with constant use. What do you make of that?
Well, you could look at it you could look at it in more than one ways. For instance, what we're doing now, you know, you're honing the skills of communicating or what's that word? Podcasting. Let's just put it. Let's
Yeah,
put it.
yeah.
Uh, you're honing the skills, aren't you? Because then if for somebody that has not been in our situation, doing it for years, like we've been doing it, it could be daunting for them.
Mm.
Even though they might have an idea of how it goes, you just sit down there and you talk. It could still be daunting. So it's a way of practicing to make yourself better at something. But then the other aspect of it is the much more dangerous side of it. The other side of it is the dangerous side of it, in that it could put you in great danger. It could also cut somebody down to shreds that you don't intend to do, or you might intend to do it. It depends. And as such, you have to. It holds true when you say it's sharp. It's the sharpest instrument. Of course, it is.
Mm.
Um, it could also be used for good as well. Yeah.
I mean, the one that follows that proverb, the tongue is the only instrument that grows sharper with constant use. Two hands should be twice as busy as one tongue. And I guess we know what that saying is. You know, actions speak louder than words. You know, words are all very well, but if you can be using your hands to do things, positive things, then so much the better. But let's just for a moment on the tongue, and I think we might have looked at this once before, briefly, not this particular one.
Mm.
Um, Something about the tongue. The tongue is a muscular organ. I thought, is the tongue a muscle or an organ? And it's actually a muscular organ. So it's
All right.
both. It's an organ because it's made up of different tissues that work together to perform specific functions like tasting, swallowing, and speaking. It's also a muscle because it's primarily composed of a complex arrangement of intrinsic and extrinsic muscles that allow for its movement. And to me, the tongue is one of the most amazing parts of our bodies. Now, when we're talking on here, and I was watching you talking and hearing you talking just now, I thought one thing I can pretty much guarantee is that Cuz won't be thinking about what his tongue is doing while it's speaking any more than I am really at this moment. But actually,
Mm.
when you do stop and think, as I'm trying to do now as I'm speaking, I'm realizing my tongue, without any instruction from me, is actually doing 15 to the dozen in terms of where it's going up to form certain letters and certain words. And for that reason, I think it's an incredible muscle come organ. And of course, the other side of it, as well as speaking, and that's what we talked about, the proverb, is the eating and swallowing. Again, when we eat, we think of perhaps our gnashers, our teeth, chewing the meat or whatever we're eating. We're not really thinking about what the tongue is doing in all that. And it is quite a sizable part of our mouth, the tongue, but we don't feel like we've got something stuck in there that's in our way, do we? It just is doing its job in an incredible way. And it has taste buds, of course, like some of our gums and even where we swallow, the trachea, the tube. There's taste buds all over the place, which gives us the pleasure, if you like, the pleasure of eating. So the tongue is an incredible thing. And okay, one thing we don't do is religion. We don't talk about religion on our podcast. We touch on it occasionally. And in some ways, I think it's a shame, not because I think we should discuss religion. People have all sorts of views and beliefs, and we don't want to offend anybody with things we may say, and that would be the last thing we would do. But it's a shame in some ways because, for example, for me, the idea of, I'm a believer, as it happens, of course, like most of us, in evolution. Whether that's the creator's way of creating the world or whatever other people believe, evolution is clearly something. What I sometimes think, and I relate this to other parts of the body, other organs as well, is even though we've been around, the Earth, humans have been around probably in some form for towards 1 million years, but maybe far less than that in terms of modern humans. But has there been enough time to evolve from the primordial soup that was where there were single-celled amoebas or other beings? You think of the complexity of humans, what we are. You look at people playing sport, look at footballers or walking along the street, and it sometimes occurs to me that every single part of a human is alive. We're full of cells, living cells, aren't we? There's not, part of our leg isn't dead and we drag it along. We're thriving, thrusting, individual human beings, which is a remarkable thing in itself. And I think, maybe it's something we don't always think about enough, just how we have evolved into what we have now. And it's presumably true to say that evolution will go on with, choosing the best, most advantageous